Hey everyone, this is the BGA podcast, Board Game Atlas, and I'm your host here, Trent, and I'm joined by Phil. Hi Phil, how you doing?
Hello. First time being here, a little nervous, but I'm gonna enjoy it.
Well, it's my first time too, since this is our first podcast ever. But the plan is we got some board game news to cover, so we'll go through. I got the agenda right up here. We got Wingspan European expansion coming out, and some people have it at this point. The Tilt 5R, this augmented reality Kickstarter that's got over 1.5 million in funding. Leader Games has acquired SPQF and turning it into Fort, so we'll talk about that. A casual Gloomhaven. If we have time, we'll talk about Oath, Chronicles of Empire and Exile. But we want to also, in addition to some news, talk about some games. So recently, I've played Parks and Black Angel, and two very different games. But I'll tell you about them and get your first impressions. I'll tell you what I thought of it. And then I've been working a lot. I'm the software guy of Board Game Atlas, so a lot of cool features that I want to highlight before we end with some user-submitted questions. So that's the agenda for the podcast.
All right, sounds good.
Yeah, so why don't we just jump into it? So you and I both played Wingspan.
Yeah.
Do you like Wingspan?
Yeah, it's definitely my type of game, and especially because I'm fairly new into the hobby. So for Wingspan, I just saw it as a very, very nice intro into the worker placement genre. So
it's got like a mini worker placement with the cubes, and there's only 4 options.
Yeah.
It is fun because it's like both worker placement and engine building at the same time.
Actually, I think I meant to say engine building. And
yeah,
I just
okay.
said worker placement, actually.
It's got both elements to it. And I think you're right. It's like the rules were so easy to understand because like everything was essentially repeating the same like rules things. You put the cube on the spot. If there's bird cards with brown, you just go down and do the thing. And it was a lot of fun. Yeah. Was the first time you played with Joseph where he just crushed everybody?
Basically.
Okay.
I think because I'm new to the hobby, that kind of experience happens often, where I just get completely crushed by someone more advanced. So, but I think it'll be something that I'll talk about later with the user questions, but I tend to just enjoy the strategy aspects of the game more than just the competition, so.
I think it's clear we both like Wingspan.
Yeah.
Have you heard anything about the expansion yet?
Yeah.
So for a quick highlight for you, if you haven't heard about the Wingspan European expansion, you can watch the little preview video that I made. I'll put a link in the description of the podcast. But the essential parts that are getting added are a bunch more bird cards. So right now, they're brown bird cards that trigger whenever you do an action, goes cascading down. That's kind of the engine building. There's the white ones that when you play a bird card, you get the thing right away, a cool little bonus. And then there's pink cards that on a different player's turn, if they do something, you get a benefit. And so those have been the 3 that filled up the American Birds deck, North America. And so the European expansion is bringing in some new effects. So there's blue cards, which have round end. So at the end of a round, then something happens. There's more interaction between other players, so you'll be able to attack and interact with them because it was kind of a solitaire sort of game.
Yeah.
And that experience is fine in a lot of games. That this is just adding some more stuff. It's adding purple eggs. So more eggs is a cool thing. And then I think it's adding enough resources for a 6th player. Is that correct?
I have no idea about that.
I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking of the Quacks expansion. So not quite sure. But anyways, does more bird cards with different abilities interest you? Are you going to pre-order?
I mean, I wouldn't be pre-ordering since I don't own Wingspan, but I'm hoping that you will.
That's
so
a good
that
point.
I can always play it. So.
Well, that's true. I did pre-order it almost immediately because I really liked Wingspan. And after I made the video, I learned how to actually store everything in the box properly.
Yeah.
So I'm excited. I think more cards is fun. We've been playing a lot of viticulture lately, but I think going to Wingspan again once we get the expansion will be a blast because I think more bird cards will be fun.
Yeah, and I just have some, history with it, I feel like, just because I got to interview the artists behind it.
That's true.
So just from having the extra, insights about, how long it took to draw some of those birds and, how they ended up meeting or how they ended up contacting the co-owner of Stonemaier Games. And just having those little insights here and there and what their favorite card was and all that, when I play the game, I get to, and when those cards come up, I just immediately think back to, Anna and, like things that they had shared. So those kind of things make it a little bit more fun too.
Yeah. I think one of my favorite parts of Wingspan is the way that all the resources interact. Because you're drawing cards, the cards are a resource themselves. You're getting food, the food is a resource, and eggs. And they kind of all interlock with each other, so you can exchange eggs for cards, cards for food, food for eggs, and get points from any of the three. And I know the expansion is supposed to add even more of that if you have leftover cards or food. It kind of evens that out.
Yeah.
So I think it's such a well-designed game that feels fair with whatever kind of strategy you're going for. And the theme is so fun.
Yeah. I've only gone for the eggs as my main strategy of trying to score points.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
I think that's because Joseph destroyed us by getting tons of eggs and built this amazing egg-producing thing. I think if you can get the right prey birds to get points from cards, eating the other birds.
Yeah.
Yeah. It does feel like the game naturally wants you to lay a bunch of eggs for points. Yeah. Well, why don't we talk about the Tilt 5 AR system? So you said you haven't really heard much about it?
Not too much.
So I covered it in a video. And the whole premise is there's this board, and it's not really augmented reality, it's mixed reality. So everyone has a board, and the difference between augmented and mixed is pretty subtle. But the idea is you get this gray board, and everyone gets glasses. And then you can play games where you put miniatures onto this board, and you're seeing it's kind of like there's a Catan-looking game where you can play Catan, and the environment's shifting and moving, and pieces are coming in and out. Or you can play RPGs where the dungeon master can see the entire map, but everyone else just sees fog beyond what they're doing, so they have to make decisions in the dark. Normally, it's through a lot of storytelling that you do that, but this is the visual aspect. And so that's the whole concept is you can play and see and interact with this really cool animated 3D graphics interface. And then if a friend in New York has the same setup, they can join in online.
Okay.
Yeah.
I never thought about that part where you can play, when you're away.
Yeah. So that seemed pretty cool.
Okay.
Because if you have people far away and you want to have that tactile, instead of playing video games, this could be an alternative to that. It's definitely geared towards RPG fans. And I think the tabletop games is kind of an interesting idea. The initial launch didn't have that many connections to tabletop games itself, creators, because they need a lot of partners to make content, and they're mostly video games that you can play with the wand that it comes with. So I don't think I was initially that interested, but if they can get lots of board game developers to make integrated games with this, I think it could be a cool thing. Keep looking at the table it's actually here, but I don't know. It's something that's interesting. There's 1.5 million in backing. I think they've got 2,500 backers. So it's not like an Xbox where it goes to hundreds of thousands of people and making a game for it makes a lot of sense. So that's kind of the toss-up. I don't know that it'd be worth it's $300 for one wand and one glasses. So if you want to play by yourself. It's $880 for 3.
Okay.
So you get the board, 3 pairs of stuff, so you can play with your friends. So it feels like a huge investment for potentially playing games. Maybe they'll have some at launch, and maybe not. They definitely have some video games you can play, like a racer one or a shooting one. So I don't know. That kind of made me waver. I know that they've partnered a lot with more, and they should have a lot more.
Yeah.
But it's kind of if the platform actually works, then it will be successful.
I see.
Yeah. Are you interested at all in?
I mean, to be honest, I think I would defer to video games more for some of those kind of experiences.
Yeah.
But I think I think my main attraction to it is just that, it reminds me of Yu-Gi-Oh, where players duel and then you have
That would be
those, the actual creatures in front of you animated and just like things blowing up. So I think those kind of things, I think I would appreciate more, where just adding just a little bit more of that visual element just to, heighten that experience.
Yeah.
I think that's something that I would enjoy.
If they could partner with a trading card game, I think that would unlock tons and tons of backers. Yeah. Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, Magic, any of those would be like absolutely awesome. I think that would sell it in a heartbeat. Like, I would buy that. So the next topic, Leader Games, who made Root and a few other games like Vast and stuff, they just signed on this game called SPQF. And it's a deck building game that you're not only just building decks, but you're also like, you have this player board that you're trying to level up. And in the original game, you're trying to create it's like a civilization. It's kind of based off of Roman Greek stuff. And you're building your civilization. Whoever builds it the biggest, gets the most points, wins.
Yeah.
And so now it's rethemed as kids building forts. And so I'm guessing you're going to build the biggest fort. And some of the cool things, like you can steal cards from other people to help build your deck. And when people play a card that's powerful and you have like a matching suit, you can play it as well. So you can like piggyback on other people playing. So in like the most basic deck building in Dominion, if I'm taking my turn, everyone waits. But in this one, there's interaction and you're actually playing with other people as time goes on because you're stealing cards and you're piggybacking on them.
Yeah.
And building your fort.
Yeah. Theme matters a lot to me, a lot. And that's one of the reasons why Dominion, I haven't played too much Dominion, but my first experience was just waiting forever for the experienced players to just finish their turn.
Finishing their long combos.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
So with Fort, especially because it's illustrated by Kyle Farron, one of my favorite illustrators. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah, I think the theme sounds a lot more approachable and fun and unique than the Roman. Even though it was like animals and stuff, it just like this seems a lot more interesting to me. And they produce really high quality stuff, so I'm excited to play it too. At
this point, I just look forward to every Leader Games. Just after my experience with Root, I think it just increases my expectations on every single one of their games. Yeah, so.
It's kind of like Leader Games is growing into this place that I've got Stonemaier games. Like every Stonemaier games, I'm very interested in playing, and I think Leader Games is getting in that same position.
Right.
Yeah. Right. Another amazing game that's coming out is the Gloomhaven Casual Edition. There's no like official title, but Gloomhaven 22-pound box. I think it's 140 retail, and my wife and I have been playing a ton of it. It's fantastic. 51-page rule book, but it's just lathered in butter. It's so easy to read, so easy to understand. You get through it all, and like my wife doesn't need to know every single detail, and just me knowing it is important, and she can learn it pretty quickly.
Right.
And I think the Gloomhaven Casual, it's going to be much smaller, just 24 scenarios that gradually introduce new mechanics slowly. So you don't need to know everything in the first scenario, just the basics of moving, attacking, and stuff. And it's also going to be $40 to $50. Is that like? I haven't played Gloomhaven with you, even though I want to play it with you and some of the other guys. I just haven't because it's such a investment to get the full experience.
Yeah, the time commitment is something that kind of makes me a little afraid to try it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like Joanne and I could play a game in like an hour and a half at this point, a full scenario. So I don't think the time it'll take to play will be different, but like you're just gonna play a random story and then it'll be over. The fun of Gloomhaven is going through the world as a party and unlocking treasure, adding to your character and upgrading them. I think this will be a lot more approachable because even if like we do a couple of things, like I can introduce you and we could start playing within like 30 minutes instead of an hour and a half, and then go through just a few weeks of it. I think it'll be a lot better.
So, do you think for veteran Gloomhaven players, do you think this would be something that they would be looking out for?
Yeah, I think I'm not done playing through the original Gloomhaven, but I can easily see new content, new characters. I'm in.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I've seen on the forums, just people wanting to just more content.
Yeah.
What I really think this is unlocking is people are going to buy this, and the Isaac Childress, he's trying to get into Target and Barnes & Noble and everything.
Yeah, I remember seeing that.
If it can sell well there, or just sell well at all, it's like an introduction to the universe and the gameplay.
Right.
People are just going to buy the $140 full retail one after.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I think is going to happen. I think it's just going to be kind of like the new Pandemic. Pandemic's, everyone goes to that as the best co-op right now for introducing co-ops. I think Spirit Island is taking over that space a little bit, but this Gloomhaven Casual might be the new one.
I do wonder how it'll do exactly if it does get to Target. Just because Target games, I mean, a lot of them are more approachable, and with RPG-related or campaign-related games, people tend to shy away from it more, especially completely new gamers, I feel like. So I do wonder how it'll do it despite the lower price tag and just the approachability of it.
Yeah, I wonder if they're going after the major gaming audience who knows that Gloomhaven has been number one on Board Game Geek for 2 years. And seeing it at Target for $40, I think a lot of people will jump on it, knowing that it's number one, this is way more affordable, and can get your feet wet. I think it'll be cool. Or like even the people who play Pandemic Legacy, that's like $60. Or if you get it for a sale, it could be pretty cheap. But that same kind of not 100 hours of gameplay, but 12 sessions, in this case 24 sessions, I think that'll get a lot of that audience. I'm really excited for it. So, Root's designed by Cole Worley, and in some of his like design diaries, which he posts on Board Game Geek, he's done 2 or 3 at this point. He talked about the history behind Root a little bit, in how he was kind of creating this with the idea of this legacy game, which is now being announced as Oath, Chronicles of Empire and Exile. Everything that they produce is a 4-letter word, it feels like, with a bunch of subtitle text. But it works. It's easy to call it Root, call it Oath. But the premise of his game, in Pandemic Legacy, in Gloomhaven, you're exploring a world. There's a kind of pre-scripted campaign in each of these that you're following and discovering, leveling up. In his take, there's no pre-scripted scenario or like anything like that. It's almost like you're interacting and playing the game, and then the world changes.
Okay.
And so the next time you play, maybe some mechanics change, maybe some of the rules change a little bit. Even if it's like, if I play with Joanne 2 times and then you and another, we play the 4 of us, the world has changed since Joanne and I have played. So it's a whole new experience for us and for everyone else joining. Okay. And so all your decisions will change the way the game plays every time you play. And it's like slowly developing the history of the world. Rather than discovering what is going to happen, you're like creating your own legacy.
Okay.
Which is interesting. I don't know how that's actually going to go out in like gameplay, but he was like developing it on his own at home for a few months. But in September is when he brought it to Leader Games and they greenlit the project. Does that sound interesting to you?
I mean, just from personal experience, just because I don't have too much exposure to legacy style games.
Oh, yeah.
That's one of the reasons why I can't get excited about it.
Yeah.
I mean, I want to and have that kind of experience, but I just haven't had a chance yet. And, you and your wife have mentioned plenty of times about, how much fun you guys had with even just Pandemic Legacy.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to get on board with that too with my wife, but hasn't happened yet. So...
the funny thing, like, the moment, like, halfway through the first game of Pandemic Legacy, something happens, and both Joanne and I were like, oh, like, we deeply gasped at what had happened. And that moment, I was like, every couple should buy this game and play it. This is so amazing. And a very similar thing happened to to Gloomhaven. We played it and like, this is even better. Like, Pandemic's fine, but like I get a little tired of the gameplay. Like, Gloomhaven is a lot more like, I think the gameplay is improved or better than Pandemic. because I play a lot of Magic, so it feels very similar, like choosing cards, choosing interactions, and sequencing, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So it feels like an even better version of that. Like everybody, well, maybe not everyone who can read a 51-page rulebook should buy this and play with their significant other. I do think Pandemic Legacy fits that a little better, but yeah, Legacy games are fun. They make stories in themselves and stories to talk about afterwards. But it's kind of like watching the new Marvel movies where if something happens, I can't really talk about it with someone else until they've seen it or they've played it. I think with this game, though, it'll be different for my group and your group, and we can share this experience in the Legacy. And it's like almost, if Joanne and I play 2 nights, we almost want to tell you the story to get you to come and play and help us develop the world more. So I think that's kind of a cool twist on it.
Yeah. I feel bad because I have nothing to say about it. So.
It's another cool game coming from Leader Games. I think it's smart that they are bringing in someone else's design, and they've got Cole Riley, who's full-time staff, and as well as Kyle, like working on this as well simultaneously. So I think they're definitely growing their production team.
Right.
Yeah. With that, I think that's all the news I wanted to talk about.
Okay.
Why don't we talk about a couple games I've played recently? All right. So the first game I want to talk about, Black Angel. This is a pretty big box. The game, I don't think would fit on this table, even with the extenders. It took up most of Joanne and I's table because, like, just look at this thing. The box is slowly opening. But, like, the art itself, like, this is pretty cool and engaging, like the neon colors and the spaceship. I love the sci-fi theme.
Yeah.
Very cool. Game itself, I think the only trouble I had was with the rules. I had to reference the rule book like probably over 20 times during the game. So many edge cases and things, and a lot of iconography. This is, I think, the one thing that everyone agrees on. Black Angel is a game you have to play at least twice. Okay. The first time, you're just wading in this deep water of rules and iconography. And, you know, once you get everything down, I think the game becomes a lot more fun. But look at this. This board already doesn't fit. And then this is the space deck of the Black Angel. Then you've got space itself here.
So Black Angel is the ship.
Yeah, it's so cool. The theme and the setup. All right, let's extend the table just slightly. Okay, I just want to show you this one part because it's so cool. So there's a mini and a token. So you got this Earth-like planet that you're trying to get to. And there's some friendly alien life. There's 3 races. So that's this blue or gray, green and yellow. Those are the friendly aliens. Then there's the red aliens. Ooh, they're scary. The Ravagers, I think, is the name of them, or something along those lines. And they are attacking both your ship and everything else. And you're just trying to make it to Spez, which is the name of the Earth-like planet.
Okay.
Yeah. So Earth is over here. You're trying to get to that spot. And you'll be traveling through space, collecting technology from aliens and running around doing things on the ship, fighting off the Ravagers. And they're attacking your ship and damaging it, and you'll be like fixing up the ship over time. But the way you're doing it is you're basically in command of these little robots. And they're doing stuff. So the robots hang out here in the supply room. They each have, like, you're player 1, you get your own little supply area. I'm player 2. So you're player 1, your supply area, I'm player 2, and so we get our own resources. And then, like, if there's other players, they get their own space. And then these outlying areas are the actions you take. You can fly into space. You can fight off the Ravagers. But if you put your little robot onto this is the main board, is like within the whole the top deck
Right.
of Black Angel. And then over here, all this other stuff attached to it, these hexagonal pieces that interlock that have like different planets and things going on. This is space, and you have a little mini, which is also the Black Angel.
Mm-hmm.
So if you fly out of the Black Angel board, you take your little mini and start out at the Black Angel mini, and you start flying one hex at a time, your little robot spaceship into space. So it's like so perfect. You're doing stuff on the ship, and then you can go over to the other side of the table and the space board, and you just fly out of it.
Right.
So it feels like I'm doing stuff on the ship, and then we're sending people out into space in this hex world. And not only that, once things happen, all these interlocking hex pieces, so at the end of like some rounds, you either win the game by killing all the Ravengers, or if you reach the Earth-like planet.
Mm-hmm.
And so the way you get to Earth is you pick up the hex section in the back, you slide everything forward, and then the hex you picked up goes to the other side. Okay. You flip it over so it's new stuff, like new planets and things to explore, and you move up your ship one space. So it's like you're flying through space and you're discovering new things. You're picking up the old hex chunk at the end, moving it to the front, flipping it over, there's new stuff. And so you're flying through space, discovering new things, and your little ships are following along or getting lost or getting attacked, all this stuff. And so you're flying through space. It's just like, that just feels so fun. And so there's...
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to comment that it reminds me of Final Fantasy a bit.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
To gain crystals to save the world.
Oh, it's because Final Fantasies often have the spaceships or airships where players start from, and then they're able to fly through all the world. But anyway, sorry about the tangent.
No, that's fine. But there's also this element of kind of some engine building. There's little squares with like get a point, get a resource, get more ships, get more robots that on each of your turns you're unlocking and like making happen. And so that's where the complexity of the game comes in, which is why you need to play it twice, because you're getting all these tiles that interplay with each other. You're managing robots, you're getting attacked from the Ravengers, you're also flying around in space. There's just so much that's going on, and in different ways you're using cards to activate your little tokens. You're using the same cards on the other side to do missions in space. So it's just like, it was so unclear to me and Joanne how to get points and what to even do. She ended up, I think the game ended 48 to 17. Like, I just made every wrong decision, and I put cards down that didn't do anything. Like, I would get a lot of points if I had this other card, and I didn't have that other card, which I realized afterwards. And so I was a little, like, frustrated at first, but that night, every time I like fell back asleep, waking up, going to sleep, I just think about the right tiles to get for the next game and where to go in space, and like I just got to get to space. That's where you get more points, is getting to space. And that makes sense. You're attacking stuff, it's all to get to space, do missions, get points that way. So I think this is a game I need to play again because I see a lot of potential in it. It just had so much overwhelming things going on at first that I couldn't see how to get any points.
Right.
And then I didn't get any points.
And as much as I've heard about, so much about Ian O'Toole's, graphic arts and iconography, this is my first time. This would be my first Ian O'Toole game. Yeah. So I'd be looking forward to it. And I can see what you mean by a lot of iconography to get down, even just looking at it. Yeah.
You can kind of get the feeling that it's very well defined or like explained through icons, but then it's also at the same time like learning another language. Like it can be very clear, but you have to know the language.
Yeah.
So that's the struggle that we had, and it was like there's so many edge case rules that they have in bullet points under each action type to take. I think overall this is a game that I'll have to play again. It's a lot of fun. It's definitely a reason why it's like high on the weight scale, but definitely worth playing.
Are we going to be able to play this anytime soon together?
If we can't play it with our normal group because some of the people we play with are prone to analysis paralysis. And this is a game where if you get stuck thinking it's going to take 3-4 hours.
Yeah.
But our table divider just popped up. Yeah. I think I would like to play. This would be like Pipeline. So like Pipeline, same sort of like very thinky game. I think that's a lot more streamlined in the gameplay.
Yeah, it
easy
seemed
to
like it.
teach.
Just based on your review video, it seemed like something that I can at least pick up relatively quickly, at least. That's the impression that I got anyway.
Yeah.
And just because I've had more experience with that type of game, so.
Yeah, that one I think is almost on the opposite end. Even though it's considered a heavier game, it's much easier to teach, much easier to understand, and I think it's more intuitive with its graphics and like gameplay structure. It's just like, can you optimize? Because the margins for error, if you make a bad decision in Pipeline, you do really poorly. If you make a really good decision, you have to make another really good decision, and it's like slow working, and then all of a sudden the last round you get tons of money. That's what like makes the game so exciting, is like this feeling of overwhelming potential at all times, and if I just make the right decision, it's going to unlock, I'm going to make so much money and get all the points. We should play Pipeline too.
I'll be actually looking forward to Pipeline a little bit more than Black Angel, just based on personal taste only.
Yeah, at this point I want to play Black Angel again because I've only played it once. I played Pipeline twice. I think long term I'll probably like Pipeline more. But this is an interesting game with a pretty cool theme. A game on like almost the entire opposite spectrum is Parks. It is this absolutely beautiful game that I do actually think should win like best artwork, best component quality and production of the year, because even though like people argue because they use the National Parks series of art in the game, that's just using some tools to create a beautiful game. I think it's a fine thing. Have you seen did I show you the box and like the actual pieces and stuff?
I've seen it at Barnes & Noble, although I think the Barnes & Noble version it's a special edition, I think.
Yeah,
the cover is a little bit different.
Yeah.
But I've seen it before.
Yeah, and like in the video I show it. It's so cool. Like the components come out and like you get 2 trays that's just like a piece of wood is the shape of it. And all the 5 little tokens are just so perfect to hold. And there's 4 types of resources and then a wild resource. And the wild resource is represented by wildlife. So bears and turtles and moose, mooses. Well, there's only 1 moose, so there's no problem there. It's so perfect. I get so excited just thinking about it. And then you're buying gear to help you and your hikers. Because the whole premise of the game, it's a worker placement game that's a lot shorter than a game like Viticulture. We could play that for like 2-3 hours maybe. And Parks, like Joanne and I can play it 30-40 minutes. And it's nice to have a game like that. We played last night actually and pulled up Spotify. So we were just out in nature and it was lovely, just added to the ambiance. But the whole premise of the game is you're just taking one of your 2 hikers and moving along the trail. You're just moving to the right. You can go as far to the right as you want, but you can't back up at all because you don't go backwards when you're hiking. You go forwards, up the mountain, through the woods, and over the hill you go. And you just place it and you get resources. You can get a mountain piece, a forest piece, a water piece, or a sun piece. And you're using those pieces to buy your victory point cards, which in this case, you're visiting a park. Right. And a park to visit maybe costs 2 water and 2 mountain. So if you've collected the 2 water and 2 mountain with your hiking, then you get that point. And then the cool component part is that the trail with all the spots to hit is changeable. So they're little cardboard tiles that you kind of shuffle up and they look like arrows like this. And they interlocked with each other. And so you get like a new trail. So you play it through 4 seasons, so 4 trails. And so you're collecting resources that can get you a park in a later turn. But that's the whole premise. Collect resources throughout the parks and buy them.
So what are the benefits of like which parks to get? How do you make that decision?
They just cost different resources, and they're worth different amounts of points. And you can buy gear, which says like every park is a discount, like a forest is discounted. So then you're trying to look for forest-based ones because they're cheaper for you. And other ones allow you to visit multiple parks. So if you collect a lot of resources first, you can cash those in. You're also, you got other things to unlock more resources throughout the game. So it's kind of like a push and pull because you can't occupy the same spot as another hiker. So you can only collect a limited number of resources. And if you and your opponents are collecting the same ones to try to buy the same park, you might want to just skip way ahead and buy it, but then you miss the opportunity to collect more resources. So it's just this, it's an interesting dynamic. It's a beautiful game. It's relatively short for a worker placement, but it's still got some good strategy decisions to make.
I've been meaning to introduce my wife to a worker placement. I tried with viticulture, and after just setting up everything and then just starting to play like one season, and then our son woke up crying. So I think having a 30-minute, you said, I think?
Well, it wasn't 30 the first time I played, but it's 30 now that we've played a few times.
Okay, so 30 to 60 minutes, that seems so much more approachable than, what we would spend on viticulture our first round. So.
Yeah. I think, viticulture is still a good one to teach as well because it like the getting vines, planting them, making them into grapes, into wine, and fulfilling orders, like conceptually that makes sense and it goes really well with the game itself and the mechanics. And like if you have a contract that you try to fulfill, it's a very easy thing to know what to plant, what to make into grapes, what to turn. So that's just do it when he's sleeping at night, not during a nap, and then you'll be fine. I think Parks is pretty good, though. It could be a better intro to worker placement. So, yeah. Well, I think that's it for Parks for Black Angel, a little bit of pipeline. So, I want to give you a little update on Board Game Atlas.
I'm excited for this one.
Yeah, so Board Game Atlas, it's been a project that we worked on for the last 10 months or so, and we just acquired BoardGamePrices.com. And so, with the announcement of BoardGamePrices.com, I got a lot of feedback on the different features that are out there right now and suggestions, and some of the biggest ones were with the forum. Our forum was lacking in a lot of ways. It's kind of like this Reddit style, just link aggregation. You can post videos and images and polls. So it's kind of useful, kind of fun. But in response to everyone talking and giving feedback, we've improved the usability significantly. So you can now look at the different, it's called flares. They're basically different categories. So if you want to see all the reviews that have been posted or all the playthroughs or other categories of posts, that's very easy to do now. There's also a feature that Phil's very excited for called topics that are kind of like a mix of a Facebook page and a traditional forum folder where like you can create for us maybe like we do conventions in California and we post about KublaCon, the San Luis Obispo convention. You can make posts for that, and it's essentially you making a page, a title, a description, an image, and then you can post inside it. And so it functions as a folder for all these posts, so you can make maybe like games you're looking forward to at Essen or things you're looking forward to at Essen, and then you can talk about and post about in that as a topic. But also, show it off. It's almost like building its own little community.
Yeah.
So that's the big changes. There's a lot of small usability changes that you can hide threads in a forum post because it's Reddit-style discussion where discussions are threaded, so it's really easy to follow conversations and stuff. And all sorts of like small tweaks. Yeah. Like a dark mode now. It's probably the most requested, most pushed off feature that I've had. But it's now live. You can turn dark mode on. It's pretty sweet.
Have you switched?
I switch back and forth, actually.
Okay. I just stick with dark mode now.
Yeah. I think if I wasn't developing it and didn't have to test both light and dark, I would probably stick with dark mode now. But I still like the light mode during the day. I think it actually functions well at night and the other during the day, and it's in the menu, so I can switch really easy.
Yeah.
What kind of stuff have you liked?
I mean, I'm just really excited for the topics that you started developing today.
Yeah.
Just because ever since you mentioned about it, I've been thinking of like the possibilities of what we can do with it,
Mm-hmm.
or what I could do with it just as a user.
Yeah.
So I've, for the longest time, I've just been wanting to be able to have a page where I can better present even my interviews, because I interview people in the industry.
Right.
So I, throughout the entire day while I was at work, my full-time work, I was just brainstorming ideas on what sort of stuff I can do. So, yeah.
That'll be exciting. I'll show you tomorrow.
Yeah.
It'll be pretty cool. So I think that's it for high-level board game atlas updates. We get some other big features. I mentioned the marketplace with the announcement of board game prices being acquired. So marketplace to buy buy and sell used games through the app itself. So that'll be coming. That's later, before the end of the year, though. So I'm excited for that, too. Because I have a lot of games now that I just don't play as much, even though I like them.
Yeah.
And it may be played like 2 times, 3 times, so good quality still. I just feel like I can't be bothered to put it onto eBay or to Facebook Marketplace or Board Game Geek or something. It just feels like too cumbersome.
Yeah.
With all those.
Yeah. And especially because, with so much of the, I guess, with Amazon and the used games tending to have that stigma of, is it going to be a scam or not?
Yeah.
I would find it way more, I would be way more comfortable, being able to buy or sell games, between users.
Yeah.
And just for the fun of being able to share my game or take someone else's game.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that'll be good. And I think with the topics in the forum growing, like, people will naturally make trade forum topics and regional ones to try and save on shipping and stuff. So I think there'll naturally be some growth there, which would help us in how we develop the marketplace. I think with that, we should do some user questions before we end.
All right.
Do you know how many we got?
I think we have around 10-ish, somewhere there. Might be more, actually.
So if someone wants to ask a question that we'll answer next week, how do they do that?
So if you want to ask us more questions, then you can. So I'll be making a weekly post. I'll try to. Every Tuesday, I'll put up a post on the forums, and then you can just submit your questions, and then we'll try our best to just answer to all of them whenever we have our podcast sessions.
Sounds good. All right, hit us with the first one.
Okay. So it's from user. Let's see, is this the first one? No, it's not. Okay. So it's from the user who hasn't made a username yet. It's someone using their Facebook login. But the question is, what makes a game elegant, in your opinion?
I think an elegant game, in my opinion, is a game that fits theme and mechanics really well. So an example is Imhotep. I feel like I'm building Egyptian things because the pyramids are made with, like, all the components are square cubes. And you're building a pyramid, which is made out of cubes. And you're building an obelisk, which is a tall structure with cubes. And it's just like, it feels like what I'm doing and the theme match really well. And I think games like that, like Parks is the newest example. I feel like the hiker's going through the trail and only going forward and going to the parks. Like, that's what makes an elegant game in my mind.
I especially like that you point out Imhotep as your example, because Phil Walker Harding, who's the designer behind it, he is well known to be a designer with a philosophy for building accessible games. And so when I interviewed him, he talked a lot about how he manages to pull that off. And so if you're interested on the interview, then I'll leave a link on there.
Oh yeah, okay.
But in terms of a game that is elegant, I think for me, I think what kind of thought I end up getting is that it's kind of like visiting a restaurant. There are some restaurants where you visit just for the sake of experience, just because it doesn't have anything special compared to others, but it just has that experience where the food, the atmosphere, and just everything just comes together so well. and you're almost like just going there to buy that experience.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of the experience that I get with elegant games like Viticulture or Wingspan or others. You know, it's not like entirely, different from other games that are out there.
Right.
But just because the theme, like you said, just meshes so well that it just fits like a glove.
Yeah.
I think that's the experience that I want to get when I play those games.
All right. Cool.
So, sense of your he wants to get a sense of our favorite games or mechanics.
Is this the same user?
Yes, same user.
Our favorite themes or mechanics?
Yes. Games or mechanics.
Games or mechanics?
Yes. I think I'll just go with mechanics.
Okay. I think, when I talk about what my favorite games are, I have a lot of different games that I consider my favorite. Dominion's the one I always tell people. I like deck building, and I like Dominion because it feels like I can play it endlessly, have different strategies and different ways that I play for more fun or more competitive. So I like deck building as a mechanic. I like worker placement because it can set you into a theme really well. And Feast for Odin, it does feel like I'm pillaging and hunting and doing all this stuff. And in Viticulture, I like to drink a little wine while I'm playing because it feels like I'm planting stuff and making and all that. So I like worker placement because I feel like it's a great way to dive into theme. I think anything that revolves about engine building, so in Black Angel and Pipeline and Century, there's a lot of engine building. I kind of like roll and writes. They're fine as a light game. It's not like I buy a game because it's a roll and write, but I think there's other mechanics, but those are the ones that stand out to me.
For me, let's see. My favorite game, I mentioned this way too often on the forums, so I feel bad, but my favorite game is Root. And one of the reasons is because when I play a game, it's almost like I'm playing two games.
Yeah.
One game just with everyone, and then another game just with myself. And the game with myself is like the bigger part of it for me. Where when I play a game, I'm just so immersed into what everyone's doing, why they're doing certain things that way, and just figuring out different strategies within a game. And so because of that, my favorite mechanic tends to be something that is asymmetrical, just because it's so filled with different strategies that everyone's trying to do.
Yeah.
And just trying to think about, why are they making these moves? And just thinking about that is something that really interests me. And tied with that, my favorite game is Root, just because, like I said, asymmetrical game.
Right.
It has Kyle's art on it.
Yeah.
I'm an art guy.
Yeah.
So it just has, everything that I just really love.
Nice.
Same question, question from the same user is, are we in a board game bubble that's going to pop soon?
I don't think we're in a bubble. I think we're at the beginning of a new trend. I think video games, when you and I were growing up in the 90s, were a little unapproachable for most people. It was they were very difficult. Even though Mario was a game a lot of people played, it's a really hard game. Most people didn't beat it. Fast forward to today, where it's no longer video games are just for video gamers and nerds and stuff. 95% of people play video games of some kind, either on their phone as a mobile game or with some sort of console or even on a other device. And so now it's just another entertainment option. You can watch movies, you can watch TV, you can go out, you can play video games. I think board games is in a similar trend where video games were in the early 2000s, where it just caught fire. Board games now, as opposed to when we were growing up, and even before that, were very unapproachable, very heavy on attacking and destroying family relationships, just because of their design.
Yeah.
Games today are designed, I think, a lot better. The themes are a lot more approachable. The gameplay is more approachable. The rule books are easy to read, and I think it's becoming more of a staple. Companies like Exploding Kittens or Cards Against Humanity are sometimes in the board gaming community looked down upon because they feel like our community feels like it's not the best game. But what it's doing is bringing everybody into the gaming community. So Codenames, I think, is a great example of a party game that a ton of people play that they like. And games like that is really showing up in most homes at this point. So I don't think we're in a bubble. I think we're at the start of a curve where board games will be another entertainment option. It'll be video games, board games, Netflix. Pick your entertainment for the night.
Okay. For me, when I see this question, I'm just wondering what the intent of this question is. Because like when it says, "Are we in a bubble?" I'm just wondering, is it more related to will the industry, what it looks like right now, with it growing, with the Kickstarters that are reaching millions, is that gonna last? I think that's one of the things that I end up thinking about. And if I were to take that question this way, I would definitely think that in the next 5 years or so, that the landscape will definitely look a little bit different than it does now.
Yeah.
With the Kickstarters, with tons of games being just like flooding into the market, I don't know if that will continue. I mean, we've seen signs of even some of the major publishers, like Pandasaurus Games, where they made an announcement saying that they're going to slow down the rate of just coming out with new games because they want to spend more time to focus on just few games, but with higher quality.
Yeah.
Just so we have to compete in the market. Just because there are so many games, hard to stand out. That, you know, some people can fall into the trap of just like, okay, I'm going to keep up with that pace, and then just like keep on producing more and more and more games onto Kickstarter.
Yeah.
But I think these days consumers are smart enough that they can pick up on a game that is not tested all the way through.
Yeah.
A game that is just has been just thrown in there for the sake of making profit. And so I think the kind of things that Pandasaurus is doing, I think it's a sign of, okay, there is a need to slow down and maybe kind of prepare for the changing landscape.
Okay.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
That's my view. Next question is from Scurvy5, Brian. What game mechanics are your favorite and least favorite, and why? So we touched up on the favorite part of it.
Right.
Engine building for you.
Yeah.
For me, asymmetrical. Least favorite.
It's a hard thing. I don't play games that I don't like playing. I think social deduction is probably what comes to mind. Those kind of games are even more so than that. Because I like games like Growl now, or Bang. Mafia games where you're just finger pointing and it's not based on any real information. That's what I don't like. I think even more that I don't like as a mechanic is the judging games. Like Cards Against Humanity, the judge picks the winner. Apples to Apples was like the original from Matt Kirby. And that's the kind of game that is fun for a very short amount of time, and then like now there's so many copycats that I'm really tired of it, so I don't really want to play any kind of those games anymore.
Right.
So I'm like very burnt out, I guess. It's a fine mechanic, but I'm just really burnt out at this point.
I can agree with you on that one. And to add, I think my least favorite could be bluffing. Just because I'm really bad at it. You've seen me with poker and things like that. I just can't do it. I
think bluffing style games are like very skill based, and if you learn the skill, then they become really fun. Because I was in the same boat, but after playing poker for a few months, poker is a great game. Texas Hold'em, of course, but yeah. I know why most people, or a lot of people, don't like bluffing. It's just like your heart's racing, and it's just like, let's just play something else.
Yeah, the corner of my mouth always ends up twitching when I start to lie, so it just doesn't work for me. So. From Neil K. Frank. He would like to hear the origin story for BGA.
So Board Game Atlas is kind of something I accidentally fell into making. So I'm originally a software engineer. I was in the industry for about 6 years, doing web development, both front end and back end, then doing iPhone, Android development. Then I moved into management of a software team. During all that time, I made a little iPhone app because I played Magic the Gathering. The iPhone app helped me draft and build decks and test them out. And I saw that I was making $60 a month, and I was like, wow, if I did an Excel chart, if I increase that every month and double it, like I'm going to make $1 million. So I convinced a few friends, and I left my job with a little bit of funding to pursue this passion. And then I was having trouble because that's not the best idea. So I was like, I should market it better. Why don't I partner with artists to make custom play mats and cards with new art to market this and sell those and market the app? Well, selling those things actually made more money than the app itself, so I abandoned the app. Working with artists now and making this online store to sell stuff. And then I find a new artist who doesn't really fit the fantasy theme. He has this cute kind of art, and I was making a card game for fun with my brother-in-law, just like a deck of cards. The one, when you play it, you get to draw 2 cards. The 2, you attack. And so I thought, well, this cute, very iconic art and this little fun game I was doing for fun, why don't I mash them together? So I made Enfu Town Bumpers, my first card game, and launched it on Kickstarter, made $8,000. I was like, wow, that's making a lot more than the other thing, so let me just focus on this. And so I produced 3 different games in 2018. And those 3 games totaled around like $65,000 in sales, mostly through Kickstarter and the pledge management system. And I was having all this trouble trying to promote and market my games after the Kickstarters, because I sell 1,000 copies during the Kickstarter and then 20 the 2 or 3 months after. So I am a software engineer. I'm like just doing this board gaming thing, trying to learn business. Why don't I build a cool search engine for board games? Because I was having frustrations with what was out there now. Board Game Geek takes too long to get into the system, and posting on Reddit, I get banned all the time. So I built this little search engine in about 2 weeks and posted it on Reddit, and got 5,000 people looking at it and using it and giving me positive feedback. I thought, wow, that's really cool. I'm still waiting on art. It's been delayed for my 4th game. I'll keep working on this. And I just kept working on it, and 2 months of people testing the beta turned into a launch of a new rebranded boardgameatlas.com. Even more people came, flooded into the doors, and so it's been something I switched into full-time. I don't want to do board games anymore. The margins are pretty terrible. But with software, if I can build something people want, then I think it's just a matter of time before I think the opportunity is a lot bigger. And so now just building this with you, Phil, has been a huge joy, because like the whole mission of it at this point is make board gaming more fun. And so it's been a lot of fun. I get to enjoy board games at a discount because I built up all these tools to notify me about prices, discussions, and logging my plays, and doing it in ways that I think are better than anything that exists. Is kind of what led to doing this full time, and a little bit of the history. Right. But I was doing this alone until you came, Phil, in about April, I think. We go to the same church, and he's an artist, so I thought my website's ugly. A great artist could beautify it. And then Phil turned into this awesome marketer and brand. Like he talked to a bunch of industry leaders, designers of games, artists, publishers, cafes, YouTubers. So we became co-founders, and that's how we're doing it now together.
Yeah. And, even with my side of the story, it's interesting because it was just last year, a couple months before my son was born, before Emmett was born in July, I think it was toward the beginning of the year or so, where I was just having this sudden thought of like, my son's about to be born, and then I started to have all these somewhat of a crisis of my identity, where I'm a full-time engineer, structural engineer, and then I started to think about, the kind of dreams that I had when I was a high schooler of being want to do art. And then at that point, that's when I got my iPad out and then started drawing and just wanted to have that opportunity to enter into the industry. And then that's when soon after that is when you approached me. Yeah. With helping out with the logo and the avatars for the website and all those things. Yeah. And then even after that, a few weeks in, you asked me to work on this together. So yeah, it just went by really fast for me. Yeah. And it just has been very enjoyable. Yeah. Yeah.
How many more questions do we have?
A lot more, actually.
All right, we gotta do rapid fire.
Oh, okay. 9:30. Okay.
Yeah, this is getting to a long podcast already.
Um,
So we'll do 1 2-sentence answers for each of these.
all right. Long-term vision for BGA.
Long-term vision is to make board gaming more fun. So that's with new forum stuff, new marketplace, and all sorts of other features coming. Native mobile apps, I think, is a big one that'll be coming too.
Mm-hmm.
That's the big vision.
Okay. Okay. User the DL. What game do you wish got more love?
Most of the game, I think Decrypto is one that has flown under the radar. It's very similar to Codenames in like word style, teams and stuff, but I think it's unique and fun, and I think more people should try it.
Can't think of a game that comes to mind off the top of my head. So, why don't we go on to user Benjamin K's question?
Okay.
I'll skip his first question because we've already addressed it. So, second question: what has been the most difficult part in starting or running BGA? And I can start out with this.
Okay.
As a content creator on BGA, my biggest difficulty was figuring out just the personalities of each of the social communities,
Yeah.
like Reddit, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, even BGG. They're all so unique in their own ways.
Mm-hmm.
And as a content creator, you always run into the trouble of, okay, how do I balance between how much I interact with the users within those communities versus trying to promote myself.
Right.
And that's always a tough one. So, I've encountered lots of, downvotes here and there where it's my post just never gets seen, comments that aren't the most positive, just things like that. And in the beginning, it took time to, adjust to those kind of comments.
Yeah.
Like, it was staying for 5-10 minutes or so. But these days, it's, it just goes away. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
You gotta develop a thick shell.
Yeah.
I think from my standpoint, it's been getting users and keeping them. But, I think the philosophy we have is just talk to users constantly, get a lot of feedback, and just iterate and change and make something that people actually want.
Yeah.
So I think that's still the biggest problem, and it will always be. So that's why we talk to users like you. If you have suggestions, comment on the forum, tell me. I release and update new big features all the time, so we're responsive.
Oh, and I guess one more thing for me is that it's just difficult running 2 jobs.
Yeah.
Because I'm still a full-time engineer, and doing this on the side, it's a lot of time commitment, along with our new son. So
That's true.
Yeah. I think this will be the last question. If you could do one thing, whether you're doing it already or not, in the board game industry, what would it be?
I have a lot of things. The one thing that I want to do, and we will be doing, I think with hopefully at the start of next year, is running a scholarship or design contest, I don't know what to call it yet, for independent designers to submit and win a big prize to help them produce like prototypes, send them out to reviewers, because as a designer myself, there weren't that many resources, and there's a growing amount of it, but I think the biggest difficulty is like if you want to show people a prototype, it costs a lot right now. So a scholarship, I think, would be really cool, and we're in the process of talking to sponsors and organizing everything right now.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to that one too. For me, I think my biggest thing is being able to promote other people in the industry. That's my biggest dream, really. And that's one of the reasons why I started the interviews, because I felt like artists don't get enough of a spotlight. That, all these games, great games out there, they get, so much hype, so much talk, so much love, but the artists kind of get left behind. Unless you're, some of the big time artists that anyone recognizes. So that's one of the reasons why I started the interviews. And same with that thought, I want to be able to help content creators in the industry who invest so much of their time and thought into providing so much good content out there. I want to help them to get their name out there, and to help them just figure out the industry and actually being able to monetize for the work that they do as well. So that's one of my dreams.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's all the questions. So it's time. I guess we can just wrap up now.
Wrap up. Okay. So as a reminder, if you want to ask questions that you want answered on the podcast, then every Tuesday Phil's be posting that on the forum. So hop on the forum, ask a question, and we will get to it on the podcast. So with that, I think that's it. And have some fun, play some board games this week, and we'll see you soon.